welcome to the first interview of Absolute Shenanigans. I am joined here by...
My name is Connor.
Who are you?
I'm a guy.
Really?
Maybe.
Can you prove it?
Probably.
In a court of law?
Prefer not to.
Okay. Well, Absolute Shenanigans is usually me and my buddies talking about comics and stuff, but we've been talking about doing some other kind of things too. And my brother Connor here, he is my brother, by the way, he didn't say that. He has been working on some zines and stickers and those kind of things. And I made a couple of shorts about it a while ago, but I thought it'd be interesting to talk with him about the process of making them. And it's for if you're in Arizona, it's for the Phoenix Zine Fest. That's the name, right?
Yeah, it's called Phoenix Zine Fest. Their main point, other than their website, is going to be on Instagram, and it's just PHX Zine Fest. So if you look it up, you'll find it on there, and there's like a whole bunch of information about where it is, and the dates are October 25th and 26th, which are a Saturday and a Sunday, coming up this next weekend.
And you're there Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday the 25th is when I will be doing it.
And what are zines?
You know, zines actually have a very wide range of meanings. It's very vague, like there's not very strict limits on it intentionally. Largely, these are supposed to be used as a way to give people the ability to express themselves in a cheap and affordable way. Like it allows a lot of people to see it, and not always a lot of people, but that's the goal, is being able to create something without needing to go through manufacturing costs necessarily or other brands in order to make what you're looking for. So typically it's supposed to give people who feel marginalized or voiceless the opportunity to voice their opinions in a way that can be shared easily with other people. Especially these days, I feel like a lot of people are getting more interested in more analog and like physical stuff over the digital medium all the time. And I think especially just with dead internet theory and AI stuff, I think people just like knowing sometimes that they get to see the faces of the people that they're sharing their art with. So I think it's just kind of a medium that is conducive of creating community and allowing for those kinds of things to be spread with other people. It can be print mediums like these. A lot of people do collage. I haven't done a collage zine yet. I really want to. But I just haven't had the time just yet to try to do one. So they'll do physical ones and then scan them in and do prints of them. But yeah, they can range a variety of sizes. Some are color, some are colorless. There's a whole bunch of different pretty cool formats for them.
And yeah, so a big part of it definitely is community and independent nature. Have you made zines before now?
I made my first zine just a couple of months ago. I've always really enjoyed comics. I love reading them, and I've always wanted to make some, but especially as a solo artist that is doing several other things at the same time, and I don't always have a huge amount of time commitment to doing art stuff, it's been kind of daunting to do a full comic book. Those are typically mid-20s to low 30 page counts, and that's a lot to commit to with drafting the whole storyboard and doing the paneling. So especially starting out, I felt like that was really overwhelming. For me, so far, I've been enjoying using this as almost a practicing medium for traditional comics. So these are going to be a little bit different than zines that you might see out in the wild. These aren't quite as... I really enjoyed making them. They aren't like super, super personal to my life, and they aren't necessarily sharing immense political messages, which aren't requirements of zines. But for the ones that I wanted to do starting out, I just really enjoy horror stuff, and so I thought it'd be fun to make some horror zines. But once again, it's a broad spectrum. There's no expectations for how a zine's supposed to look. But yeah, mine are just kind of more fun ideas that have kind of been in the back of my mind for a while, and these were some ways that I thought I could express them in a way that doesn't take up an insane amount of time, so I can kind of get my idea from my brain into a physical medium.
And I know you had been working on some webtoon style stuff previously, which kind of manifests in some of this, which is pretty cool. How do you feel like the format going from, and you didn't publish those, but how has the format felt a bit different or similar doing the webtoon long vertical versus doing these?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of different moving pieces to different types of mediums, of course. So when it comes to like making something like a webtoon, that's going to be a digital first kind of option. Some people have translated their webtoons into physical mediums. It just requires some changes to the formatting and paneling. A lot of the time they'll go back through and restructure all of it because it's meant for an iPhone screen. It's going to be very thin but super vertical is how the paneling looks. For those ones, it cuts it into small panels and then you stitch it all together in the final process. So depending on how you do that, it can be very computer intensive potentially. Because a lot of mine will be like, I want to say like, I think it's in the tens of thousands of pixels vertically and easily several thousand pixels horizontally. So adding and changing anything to that, at least for my hardware, was kind of a lot. And especially exporting it, those can be some huge files. So those are things you have to take into account for a digital medium. For physical, this is one of my first times doing a lot comic-wise with it. And there's so many different things that I didn't really think about starting out. For one, there's a lot of different options for making these. While I was mentioning that this can and is often a very indie thing, there's also other elements of it. So a lot of people will go through third parties that they'll have print out a bunch of their zines for a cost and ship them over. And so that process is going to be quite a bit different than making them yourselves. For me, everything I have over here are things that I've made myself outside of these stickers. That I did have another group print those out. If you want to make your own stickers, you can use like Cricut. I think they're called Cricut, maybe CrewCut machines. I actually don't fully know. I'm still looking into it. And those will automatically cut down your sticker paper. And then there's ways that you have to build your own laminates. For sticker paper, it's not automatically weather resistant because the ink has to be able to set onto it. So there's a lot of stages that go through to make your own stickers. So for those, I'm outsourcing them right now. Eventually, I'm thinking about investing maybe in doing it myself. But a lot of these things can be really difficult to do on your own. When it comes to printers, there's going to be your standard printers that most people have. Then there's a type called LaserJet. It's going to be a little bit faster, typically has slightly brighter colors. And then also there's eco printers, and those ones you can get a lot of ink, but some people have problems with the quality of them. So those are all differences. You also have the difference between printers that can do full bleed or non-full bleed. And what that means is on most standard printers, when you print something out, you're going to have that border around it implicitly because those printers will often use rollers to roll through the paper. And so if you have ink all the way to the edges, that can create problems with it smudging against those rollers. Other ones are able to do what's called full bleed, and those are ones where it'll print across the entire page. I'm very lucky in that the printer that I have is able to do that. So it'll come out just looking like this right off the bat. This one's like a scrap one, so you can see the ink's like relatively dull on it. But it'll just come out that full color right there. You're not gonna have those borders around it. But there are other pieces around that I actually came across while making mine. So for one, if you make a PDF, it inherently adds borders to your PDF, or at least that's what I had happening. So for like my multi-page zines like this one, I had to print it on one side using a PNG and then put all the paper back in upside down and then print it again so that it would do both sides. So that was a little bit more difficult to figure out even what was going on there and troubleshoot it. So there's a lot of different elements. Typically, if you go to like a mass producing print center like FedEx or UPS, it's going to be about 10 cents per page for black and white and closer to 60 or 70 cents for color. So if you do outsource it, and those are going to be cheap options, those aren't going to be using quality like made for art paper. That's going to be closer to just your average 8.5 by 11 paper for documents, more so than art. But even if you're doing it that way, it's like that can add up pretty fast. But if you're doing it at home, you're having to pay for ink and upkeep and hoping that your printer doesn't jam and paying for your own types of paper. on the lines of paper, there are a bunch of different things to look at there too. There's glossy paper, there's matte finish paper, and then there's also, they're called different weights. And I've been just looking into this recently, but like cardstock is going to be a very heavy weight. That's going to be one that might be harder to fold, but also you're going to get very little see-through transparency. So if you're printing on both sides, sometimes that can be helpful. You also have thinner papers that do a good job of doing both. They feel more like standard paper, but aren't very see-through. There's a whole bunch of different elements to look into when it comes to physically printing and doing it in a physical way. On top of that, when you're doing it by yourself, there's a lot of things to consider in terms of time intensity. I have made 20 copies of my Please Don't Laugh During the Puppet Pandemic little comic that I made, 20 copies of this one here, and then 20 copies of my Obscure and Forgotten Cryptids of Arizona. I really like this one. But every single one of those require being folded down. So you have to fold these horizontally, and then vertically you have to do a little cut in the middle of them to make a crease. These are what are called mini zines typically, and that's going to be those single page ones. Most people do it with the 8 panels within it as part of the format. These ones don't require any staples. I think some people call those stitchbacks. I'm not fully sure if that's the accurate term. Because some people will use a sewing needle and thread to bind them. Some people will use staples. There's a bunch of different bindings. These ones are going to be way more cost effective because you're just printing on the one page. You don't have to use any of that stitching. So these are, I mean, I can do one of these in probably like 25 seconds or so to fully fold it through and do the zine. So not crazy time intensive compared to doing different sizes.
So outside of the like physicality of it, what kind of, you have a wide variety of stuff. I think, like, how many are you at? Do you know?
I think it's close to 7, so I'll try to count through them. So we have the Puppet Pandemic, we have the Scariest Internet Story Ever Written, which is the only one based and written around someone else's text. This is going to be that like anonymous internet post from a long time ago. And it ends with it's the man door, hand hook, car door bit.
It's a classic.
It's written anonymously. It's just on the internet. So there's not any, as far as I'm aware, it's public domain. So I just did some sketches for that. All the rest are completely original scripts and art and everything. So yeah, I have those 2, and then I have my Obscure and Forgotten Cryptids, which is number 3. I have the first one that I ever did, which is Cavendish. I probably got the idea for this by listening to John Green's Anthropocene Reviewed. He mentions the Cavendish banana at one point. And I'm sure that got in my head, and then I was just sketching like a banana superhero. And so I was just like, it'd be kind of fun to do a banana superhero comic. And I looked more into it. And then I realized that the Cavendish banana, which is the modern American banana, if you go to any store, this is going to be the one that we have here.
The banana.
They ship really well, so they're able to keep a long period of time, which is really important because we import a large chunk, if not all, probably a large chunk of our bananas. There might be some that are locally grown, but a large chunk are made out of country, so that's really important to be able to ship them out and have that nice coloration, because for some reason we're obsessed with our fruits and veggies looking perfect. Anyways, it is grown in a monoculture, which means there are no other types of plants there, and so because of that, it's at risk of a disease, and this disease is called Panama disease, or Fusarium wilt, I believe it is. And so if that hits any of the trees there, they have to cut down acres of it because they're all equally susceptible because they're genetically identical. And I was like, well, this seems like something I actually kind of care about now looking into it, because bananas are pretty cool to have, and it's crazy to think that we might lose them to this disease in the way that we're farming them. So that's where that one got inspired. And then we have, this is just some sample pages. I haven't actually printed this one because it is full color. It's also going to be that full page. So this is an 8.5 and 11 folded by just that one time. These ones are going to be that half size. So if you have an 8.5 by 11, this is going to be cut around the middle point there. So these ones are going to be 8.5 by 5.5. So these are a little bit smaller, but this is full size, full color. So that one's going to be kind of ink intensive. So I'm still kind of figuring out how I want to do that one before doing everything. Then we have, this is one of my personal favorites, Moose Park. I've been working really hard on, doing that webcomic stuff. I've been bouncing the ideas in my head forever, and this is my first actual fully completed interpretation of a chunk of Moose Park, but I've been looking a lot about the lore that I want to do for that. So this is kind of a way to put some of that down in a way that people can actually look at it while I'm working on other things. And then we have another one of my personal favorites. And let me open this one up. Boop, boop, boop. This is the, here we go. One Last Hallows Eve Together. This one I did based on traditional retro vintage or especially vintage is the terminology, vintage like Halloween decorations and decor. It's vaguely in the rubber hose style, but it's known for having that, it'll have that orange and bright yellow coloration in it. If you search vintage Halloween, you'll see a bunch of stuff that kind of looks like this. And I was just really inspired by that look. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of do a completely unique thing within the medium as far as I'm aware. And that's the cool thing about zines is they can literally be whatever you want. It really is just a printed consumable and shareable piece of storytelling or a way to communicate. So this one, it has like the moon at the top there and some panels, and then you'll see like the characters at the bottom, and then that moon gets closer and closer because it's crashing down at them, and I thought it was really cool to be able to physically represent that throughout the zine there. So I really like that one. I think that was very cool. I'm also trying to figure out how to mass print those because once again, it takes a lot of ink to print those. That was another one. I have a bunch of iterations here where I started with just drawing it physically to kind of figure out how it would work in the physical medium with being able to wrap it and do the different sides of it and how that would look panel to panel to be able to do it digitally. I tried it in black and white with different types of paper. I found cardstock was a little bit too thick to do that many folds, so it didn't work very well. I tried one that was just black and white on colored paper, which I still really like. I might go with that one as doing it in a cost-effective way. Because I think I might run out of ink, and it's like $180 for new cartridges for my
Ink is
printer.
crazy. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I'm looking into getting an eco printer. They can print a lot for very little money. Like you can get a crazy amount of ink. They also come in bottles, which I think is a little bit more eco-friendly. So I think I might try to invest into one of those, but I have heard a little bit about some mixed reviews on the printing for those, so I'm going to look into that more specifically. But yeah, I tried, this is just like a handful of the many iterations I've tried with cardstock, standard paper, color, non-color, colored paper, all sorts of different things. And then I think that's it. So just to recap,
7.
because that was a lot of
7.
meandering.
Yeah.
So we have the 1, Puppet 1, 2, Scariest Story Ever Written, 3, Cryptids of Arizona, 4, Our Cavendish Banana Story, 5, this is going to be Animals of Arizona, just some of my favorites, 6, Moose Park, which is one of my personal standouts. I really like this one, Cavendish, and then number 7 here with One Last Hallows Eve Together.
And so part of the crux of this was the Phoenix Zine Fest quite a few months ago now was like taking like submissions to get into it. It was kind of like they only have so many spots and everything. And so you kind of started doing it off of that. And then you got accepted in, which is really cool. And that process was kind of, you made a few like mock-ups and you finished a few and you showed that off. How was that experience?
I feel like, at least for me, this is probably something a lot of people struggle with, but if I don't have like a set goal and sometimes an externally set goal, I have a really hard time finishing art projects. I really love the idea phase of a project. I will spend hours and hours and hours thinking about an idea and how it would work and practicality and some gimmicks that would make it fun and unique and all the storytelling for it. And then I kind of just get tired of that project and move to the next one without even doing anything physically with it. I don't like write out a script for it. I don't draw like a comic for it. I just think about all the ideas. I'm like, this would be a cool video game. This would be a cool comic. This would be a cool book. And then I move on to the next idea. And so I really wanted something to push me to make some art stuff. I'm good at doing like very short projects, but kind of the longer term stuff for making a bunch of things can be difficult. And so I heard about this as a thing and was looking into it and realized it was just a few months away. And I was like, well, this is a really good way to push myself to actually make some things. I did make that Cavendish one just out of my own volition for fun. But then I saw that they were doing a Phoenix Zine Fest, and it's like, that would be a really cool way to get to show off some of my art and get to like really push myself to do this. So I applied with this and some of my other digital art I've done. I do a whole bunch of different stuff. I haven't mentioned it yet. Hopefully we'll add a little banner thing underneath.
For sure.
But I go on based on, I guess my name online for my art stuff is Vermucus.
Which is Vermukus.
Yeah. Vermucus. So that's where all my stuff is. I've done a whole bunch of digital stuff. Almost all of it's on Instagram. I started out with some DeviantArt stuff. So a lot of my work's on there as well. It's just cross-posted on both of those. And Yeah, so I already had a portfolio kind of existing, so I was able to use some of that to mock up what some of my ideas would look like. I had the beginnings of Moose Park. I don't think I actually have the original one over here. But yeah, so I had the original version of that. So I had some basic stuff to work off of, to show off, and then I did get admitted. I think there's over 180 local, maybe some non-local, but mostly local Arizona artists. So really cool stuff. A lot of them are new ones too. I think a majority are returning, possibly, but there are a lot of new ones, which I think is very cool that they're giving the opportunity for a bunch of us who haven't done this before to get the chance to do it. I really think that's a cool way to break into it. I think it would be cool to get to meet a bunch of other artists in Arizona. Sometimes finding that sense of community and stuff can be difficult, so I'm really looking forward to that on top of kind of sharing some of the creative stuff I've been working on.
And this festival is a yearly thing here in Phoenix. They have just a whole bunch of booths with people that have their zines out, and you can trade zines or buy them from each other. And then the public, of course, is able to just come through and talk and check out the booths and buy zines and all that kind of stuff, which is super fun. So quite a few of these, and your art in the past too is definitely sort of Halloween spooky based, and I'm sure some of that comes from this one being happening so close to Halloween in the fall season, on top of that being kind of something that you're really into. But before we talk about that a whole bunch, but I do want to, there's quite a few of these that are very based off of animals and agriculture and ecology. So talk about your background there.
Yeah, well, I think honestly looking at this, and I didn't do it intentionally necessarily, but just thinking about it, it does show kind of a good kind of bisection between my two kind of big interests in life in general, which is especially animals, but conservation in general, including plants and the ecosystem, of course. I got my degree in conservation biology and ecology. It's something I really care about. I absolutely love animals. I love the planet. I think the Anthropocene can be a little bit mixed, but in general, I think it's absolutely amazing. I did a minor in psychology. I just really care about people as well. I think they're fascinating. So that's one piece of it. I absolutely love animals. So you can see a lot of that with Cavendish. I mean, this story wound up going from being a superhero comic to literally just being a story about what's going on with Panama disease and our monoculture and all of those things. It kind of went from being kind of this more fantastical thing to being very grounded in reality based on those issues I saw. We have this one, of course, that's just literally about a bunch of different Arizona animals, a lot of which are endangered. Some that I've gotten to work with, some that I haven't. Mount Graham red squirrel I haven't gotten to work with personally, but I think they're very cool. I work a lot with black-footed ferrets. I've done a couple of different things in the past with them. I think they're amazing.
Which you just worked with the what is it, the Fish and Wildlife, is that what it's called?
This one's going to be the Arizona Game and Fish Department, so that's the state agency. The Fish and Wildlife Service is federal. I think we've bumped shoulders a couple of times when I was working with the Forest Service. But yeah, so that was going to be the state agency that's more focused on the black-footed ferrets. But yeah, I've worked in a couple of different conservation areas, Forest Service, Game and Fish, and then the Phoenix Zoo. So a couple of different areas focused on conservation.
And part of that, I just want to steer the conversation slightly. Part of that was you were up in the Payson Forest, right? Payson?
Yeah.
Forest for, months, and you would be up there pretty 4 or 5 days a week and then come down. Yeah, so just super interesting to hear about that experience of being out in the forest so much. And I feel like a lot of that is kind of in here, as well as something we've always enjoyed, but you really enjoyed and talked about up there is kind of sharing ghost stories and folklore, and definitely several of these things, the cryptids of Arizona and even the scariest internet story ever written. Many of these are kind of folklore-y stories. So yeah, I mean, I'm not the best at interviewing. If you want to talk a little bit more about animal stuff, for sure, and then I also definitely want to talk about your thoughts and kind of excitement around folklore tales and that in ghost stories and stuff.
Yeah, I'd actually love to talk about that section. Once again, I'm obsessed with horror. By far, the biggest type of novel that I'll read is in the horror genre. I just absolutely love that feeling of dread and trying to figure out the world and the characters. And once again, honestly, as someone who also just really enjoys psychology as a hobby. I'm not great at any of it, but I think it's really cool stuff. I think you get a lot of that in the horror genre, maybe more so sometimes than in other genres. Not necessarily, but I think you can get some really cool psychological stuff with seeing how characters react to different situations, and a lot of books will focus a lot on how their past kind of determines how they're acting now. But anyways, on top of that, when it comes to folklore, I think the campfire story is really cool, and we don't do that quite as much now in the same way. I think we get lots of really cool stuff with horror books, with movies, people that are reading creepypastas and making them online. That's literally just campfire stories told over a digital fire rather than a physical one. But I've always just really enjoyed folklore, especially when it comes to like cryptids and eldritch monsters. I think those are some of the coolest parts of the horror genre. I really like stuff that's not fully explained, but is like there's like a baseline awareness of it, but in general, we don't know how their systems and mechanics work, and we never really learn throughout the story. So that's where this one came in a whole bunch. And actually, one of the characters in this, not characters, but like cryptids, the Payson prairie wolf actually comes from when me and a couple of my coworkers were out there with the Forest Service doing botany surveying, so surveying of plants. I had previously worked with prairie dogs over in Aubrey Valley when I was with Game and Fish. And so we were just kind of like spitballing back and forth this idea of a prairie wolf, which is like a huge prairie dog, and they make a similar noise, so people will go in to investigate, but then they're actually these like huge abomination prairie dogs that will like grab you into their burrows, and who knows what their underground society looks like and stuff. And I just really like the idea of us not knowing everything, which is absolutely accurate. In the biological world, we've named and listed millions of species, but there's supposedly possibly millions and millions more, like magnitudes more than we already have identified. And I just really like that concept, kind of the way it bisects between the horror of the unknown and then also that need for conservation, because we don't always know what we're stepping on when we're stepping on it. And I think it's really important that we have that level of respect and wariness for like our natural world.
Yeah, I feel like humans are so kind of data-driven and extremely categorically minded. Like categorizing everyone and everything is kind of just how the brain functions. Like I talk a lot about people that do a lot of different things. It's sometimes kind of like complicated for other people to comprehend that some, because it's when you know so many people, or like you meet them for a brief time. It's like I do a lot of sound design for projects, and then people are like, oh, he's the sound guy, but I also do VFX and directing and all this other stuff. And similar with you, it's like you work at the zoo and whatever. Not in whatever, but you work at the zoo, but you also do a ton of other things with conservation and also art and everything. So it's always super interesting how all these things blend and like work through us and like what we go after. And there's all those just different overlaps that we kind of sort of understand or maybe don't understand about ourselves, but that sometimes just categorically, other people just don't understand those facets of how everything blends together. And I think it's just really cool how a lot of this does blend together. A lot of the things that you've been interested in and researching. And then so in terms of art, you did graphic design for several years in high school. Talk about that and kind of how that leads into this and sort of your structure for it. Yeah.
Okay, so answering that question, I did do 4 years of graphic design in high school. My plan for college was to become a graphic designer, like get a graphic design degree. But we had a really cool ability to actually, they brought in a bunch of clients and then other people that have done graphic design, like our professional graphic designers as well as our teacher, to kind of explain what that world's like. And I just didn't love the freelance nature of it. On one end, I think it's really cool, but then one of the artists did a really good job of describing it as being, you'll have months where you make a lot of money and are doing very well, and then you'll have months where it's very hard to find work and you're just having to live off of those savings. And the inconsistency of that, as someone that likes a level of comfort and organization, seemed a little bit stressful. In hindsight, to be fair, the conservation field is not too much better than that. Most field work is seasonal, so you're also hopping around and don't have a great amount of job certainty all the time. Not to get super political, but in times when there are shutdowns and depending on who's accruing funding for federal and state agencies, that can make a difference in your ability to find jobs. So it's not a super reliable one either, but I'm really glad that I picked it. But along those lines, we focused a lot on logo design. And that's something I'm still very drawn to. I absolutely love creating brands, and not in like a capitalistic way personally. I really like making them like fake brands, like stuff for like movie props, stuff like that. I really like creating physicality for things that don't actually exist and kind of seeing how that would look. Assuming I ever make it, we'll see if that happens. But my webtoon for Moose Park involves a lot of those types of things, like making those types of logos for the world of Moose Park. What would those ride designs look like? What would a employee badge look like? What would an audio tape look like?
I remember designing the theme park map, and like that's such a fun thing too. Maps are really interesting.
Yeah, there's some people who are obsessed with map making. I could see myself falling down that cliff at some point, but I really enjoyed, I feel like honestly in doing storytelling, it's a good way to kind of map out what you're doing in terms of like the plot itself, to know what the physical location looks like. I wanted to use that as a way to kind of not restrain myself almost, but in that way create like some bounds to bounce up against so that I knew what I was looking at. So yeah, map design's very cool. I love logos. I love comics. I'm still learning a lot about anatomy. I'm not great at any of that side of it yet. So I'll need to apply more of that. But yeah, I just really enjoyed all of that stuff. A lot of my starting out images, they look a lot like they should be stickers. They were just made as designs, but they kind of just work out that way. They have the kind of more thick lines that you'd be used to in a like brand logo. I just really enjoy that type of art. Especially with the bright, vivid colors and all of that type of thing. So they wound up kind of progressing well into that. In terms of like my creative style, I'm still definitely looking into it. A lot of my stuff is very kind of sketchy right now. Just trying to get ideas out there. But yeah, it started a lot with using Illustrator and Photoshop and InDesign. Now I use almost exclusively Procreate. All of these were made almost entirely in Procreate. Stuff like the Moose Park logo here was actually a reworking of the one that I already made over there. That one actually did start out as just a little image because I thought it'd be fun to sketch, and then I kind of went from there. But in general, all of this stuff was made using Procreate, which is just a really cheap application you get on your iPad. It's not a subscription service or anything, so I really like that aspect of it. And I've really been enjoying using that for making this kind of stuff.
And you use the pen with that, right?
Yeah, I think it would be a little bit harder to use your hands. Some people will use styluses. There's a lot of third-party pens that I think work really well as well. I was lucky enough to be able to I use an Apple Pencil with my iPad and stuff, so I really like how it works, and I haven't done too much with the brushes, honestly. I used a little bit of stabilization to make my lines kind of resemble what I'm used to with Illustrator and physically drawing, but beyond some basic stuff like that, I only use like 2 or 3 brushes so far, so I'm still really getting into it, but it's been a really cool application to kind of explore.
So you do have some like teasers of these on the Instagram, so people can go check those out. You also have had a Redbubble store for quite a while. That's mostly just been like you and I and like family and friends that know about that. But there's a lot of really, really cool stickers on there for sure. You get a very, very clean line on a lot of the stuff you do. It's just always a very clean geographically or what would you say, like geometric shapes, very clean lines. But the colors are super interesting. All the stuff that's on the Instagram and your stickers, especially some of these I know don't have quite as many colors going on, but very, very fun. Like not pastel all the time, but very, very colorful. I don't know what you'd describe them as necessarily. Not neon, not pastel, somewhere in between those kind of colors.
Yeah, usually using brighter colors. For some of them, they leaned more into pastel. Other ones, a lot of them have a mix of very like vibrant colors along with some pastel colors, which I think looks really cool. But yeah, I've worked a little bit on the Redbubble store. I kind of want to work more on making more sticker stuff, but haven't done too much there. I'm thinking about maybe opening up an Etsy thing to do it as well. But these are what those Redbubble stickers look like. They'll come in sheets like this if you order a bunch of them. I think they look pretty cool. Most of them are relatively weather resistant, which is cool. And then these ones here I actually got through makestickers.com. If you are trying to make your own sticker stuff, I think this is a pretty good resource for it. They print it out really well. I really like how they just are printed to the look of the model, like it's embezzled right around it, or however you'd say that, to match the shape of the image. They send back proofs for it very, very fast for you to be able to approve or make edits to. The shipping was pretty fast. This isn't an advertisement for him. One of my friends told me about makestickers.com. But for me, it's like it worked really well. I'll probably look into other ones. There might be better options as well. But I really liked how those turned out as well. There's a lot of good options for people that are interested in making their own stickers to sell or just for their own fun.
And part of the zine format is that it is a shorter physical thing. It's not meant to be a like full-fledged product necessarily, which when you were talking about, you know, the idea of doing a full-fledged project like a comic book, it's definitely a different undertaking than this, and something definitely like my friends and I are doing a show where we do like short films, and that's kind of part of a similar thing where it's like to do a feature or to even do like a longer short, it's a lot of an investment, and sometimes it's just super fun to get an idea and really go for it in a short amount of time and get something out when you're, you know, you want to have that creative outlet, but you're not looking, you know, it's a little bit more chill and the time between idea and production is less. So talk a little bit about like specifically, I guess, let's go through, let's just go through the please don't laugh during the puppet pandemic one, I guess. So kind of talk about the idea process and the development of this one.
Yeah, so honestly, this kind of reminds me going back to you mentioning how, like, all of us as people have a bunch of different interests and things that we're looking into and exploring in different facets of ourselves. With me, it might be things like conservation and graphic design and comics and horror, and for other people, it's going to be other things. One of my favorite things about zines is that you get to see a lot of that in its early stages. Not necessarily early stages, but maybe in its more like raw form than it would be otherwise. So you'll get things that might not have existed otherwise without this type of format to back it up. You get a lot of really cool, super personal ideas and written stories and reviews and all sorts of things that you just wouldn't get otherwise. And something about the physical medium makes it more endearing. It kind of feels more like peering into someone's soul, I feel like, than other things. Like, when you make a full project like a comic, usually you have to really storyboard that and think it out. And by the time you finish it, they're absolutely amazing. I love them so much. But they have a structure to them because they have to. It's like that's a long form thing. Some of these kind of feel like pulling strands of thoughts from someone's mind. So for this one, it started out with the idea of like, I think the zombie genre is cool. I always like flipping it on its head. Another idea I came up with before this one was the idea of like headless horseman zombies. So in that one, it'd be like a headless horseman chops your head off and you become another one. Yeah. I just think it's kind of something about that idea. I just like being like, what if it's zombies, but this? Yeah. And I was like, so for this one, I was like, what if it's zombies, but puppets? And so I was trying to think about how would that work in physicality? Because like the puppet could like come over and like chomp someone, but they're not really known for biting. You could have like the person dead, but the zombie still going around. But like that looks a little bit weird in physicality sometimes. So I was trying to think about it some, and this might go back to like Randy Feltface and just like Muppets and everything. But typically they have a humor side to them. I personally really like puns. I like annoying people and making people laugh with them. I just think the puns are a fun time. Cool little way to kind of like think about the literary language in different facets and kind of poke some humor in it. So that's the idea here is like, it started out with like, what if zombies, but puppets? And so a lot of these, they kind of start with the same kind of premise where a puppet monster will just share some basic pun. This is like the most generic, why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9. And then if a person laughs at it, then they become a puppet. So it's kind of that same idea of the like virulence of a zombie pandemic, but told just through a different kind of fun lens. And so this one wound up being just the idea of the world being taken over by all these different puppets that come through and make a bunch of different pun jokes. And then if you happen to laugh at one, then you become another one that then starts telling puns to other people. And maybe the physicality of the puppets kind of embodies what puns you're making. So we have like a pirate here that makes pirate-based puns. We have a dinosaur making dino puns, all sorts of stuff like that. So it really just started as that idea. This has been floating in my head for a long time in different forms of like a late night puppet show. And there's these characters that like are there when like round zero hits with the puppets and are trying to escape as like a full-fledged comic. That's another one where I did a lot of doing the blueprints for it and like rough drafts and some concept art, but didn't get it off the ground because it's just a really big undertaking to make a comic. So once again, I really love that about the zine medium of being able to take those ideas and making it into something that is a complete work of art. like a completed story as well, that also doesn't require hundreds of hours necessarily to complete. I really like that aspect of being able to share your ideas in something that doesn't always have to be crazy long or crazy structured or kind of constrained to some of those other mediums.
And what's the like timeline for making that one?
This one, honestly, I think in terms of like making the art, just took me a couple of hours. I had the idea in my head for, like I was mentioning, probably a couple of years, 2 or 3 years as that first concept. This one, I then kind of branched out from there. So I was probably storyboarding it for a week or 2 in my head. Then I wrote out a physical script for it, like what the pages are going to show physically, what kind of text are going to be on them, what kind of puns and stuff I'm going to use for it. And then from there, I'm physically drawing it using Procreate. So I just set up that basic 8-panel mini zine format. I'm doing all the sketches for it. Then I'm doing final sketches. I'm adding my fonts and my text to it, a font that'll hopefully match it. I'm adding my little Vermucus logo. And then I'm trying to print it out physically to make sure it works. There were some words that with that no bleed, I think it's called no bleed. I think that's what I was mentioning. Yeah. That no bleed zone or whatever it is where it prints on the outmost borders, some of the text was being cut off. That's something you have to think about in a physical medium that you don't have to think about digitally.
Yeah.
That I'll add in. Along those lines, just really quick, I absolutely love doing color. This kind of stuff is my favorite. This kind of stuff as well. It's just way harder to do physically, especially with trying to print it myself. It's just very cost expensive. Or very just expensive in general.
Yeah.
So I really like this one a whole bunch. I'm trying to figure out how to do it physically, but that's kind of where you meet that bisect or that cross section between being able to do it physically and feasibly and being able to kind of go all out. I really like those bright colors. So kind of a way I was able to find a middle ground there is by just using brightly colored paper on that black and white to still, or not black and white, but just black and absent space to kind of still get the color look without having to use quite as much ink because it's so expensive.
Yeah, you've got a pink one and an orange one and a white one, and then some of the other ones are colored around white. Did you test out a few different colors for these and just these were the ones you liked, or was it kind of this one's a scary Halloween sort of thing, so it's going to be orange? What was the thoughts in picking the colored paper?
Yeah, kind of a mix of those. So this one, kind of art style wise, was kind of inspired vaguely by Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I just really like the art style of that. So I kind of tried to get some of that basic idea of like the dark colors and shading, and it's black and white for that. So I thought it'd be fun to keep that idea. I think the white really looks good for this kind of creepy story. Or not story necessarily, but like little guide to cryptids of Arizona. For these ones, I just thought about puppets in general. A lot of those puppets are bright colors. I personally really enjoy bright colors. This pink color is one of my favorites in general. So I started with that. I also have a bunch of this colored blue one for those as well. I just think it looks good for the kind of puppet idea. For this one, a lot of it really did have to go down to Halloween. Half of these that I made roughly are purple, the other half are orange, so we just kind of have those Halloween colors. Both turned out really well when I was doing my print test for them, fully legible and everything, and I was just like, that'll be kind of fun. Just going back to the Phoenix Zine Fest, there's a lot of things you have to consider when tabling. I have this to help carry my stuff. I'm going to use a bunch of other things. Someone online mentioned using a roller backpack to kind of bring their stuff. I think that's a really cool idea. With a lot of these, you get a shared booth with someone else. You get about 3 feet of it. Someone else gets another 3 feet. It's really important to use that room well so that you can have areas for all of your things to be shown in a way that people can see them well. You also want to consider the visual aesthetics. I mean, everyone else there is also going to be an artist. Ultimately, we want everyone to see everyone's stuff, but people's attention can be drawn towards different ones, so it's important to think about that as well. So a lot of these actually stemmed from the idea of I'm going to use a like jack-o'-lantern trick-or-treat basket, and these are going to be in there as kind of like a fun little like Halloween trick-or-treat little thing that they can get as like a fun like Halloween kind of spooky themed thing. So all of the ones that I made are spooky themed. In general, that's what I'm drawn towards, but that's definitely where I'm sure this Halloween theme for this one came up and stuff as well, as kind of just matching the vibes of the festival, given it's going to be on the 25th, so it's so close to Halloween. So I just kind of wanted to go all in with that October theme and kind of the idea of trick-or-treating with the little stories and stuff.
And then quickly just talk about kind of like pricing and your ideas about that with these.
Yeah, so pricing is actually a really interesting and semi-hotly debated topic in the zine world. Once again, this is my first festival. I'm just dipping my toes into this. I don't want to speak on behalf of the community because I'm not a big part of it yet. I'm just enjoying kind of getting into it a little bit and trying to see other people's stuff and make some of my own and just see how it turns out. Some people really like making quite a bit of money and trying to make close to a living. Not necessarily a living, but a pretty good return on investment for their work, which is absolutely amazing. You also have a lot of other people that try to make it as accessible as possible, kind of going back to some of those roots of zines, something that's easy to pass around to a bunch of people, something that's really accessible for an artist to make. Sometimes they also want to make incredibly accessible to the people buying it. Some of these are, I mean, even with these, it took a long time to, like, going from planning stage to writing the script to drawing the images to doing the final version to adding the text to doing it physically and then folding 20 of these for each one. Some people will do more than that for sure. For their inventory, takes hours and hours. So if you think about the start to finish time, like something like this will take easily 10 plus hours, like easily. That's definitely on the short term of doing all that process, well over 10 hours. So they want to have that get represented, which absolutely I think is very fair. And then you also have to keep in mind physical stuff here. I had to buy all the colored paper. It wasn't super expensive, but you also have to print it all. Ink is very expensive. So all of that takes time. Labor of folding them takes time. So you want to keep all of those things into account. I'm hoping to run these somewhere between $1 or $2. The application I'm going to be using so people can use credit cards will take a cut of that money. So I'm thinking closer to $2 as before printing and doing any of it. As like $1 seems fair, but then afterwards the amount of ink and materials and just the amount of time it took was a bit higher than I thought. Just doing the hours and hours of like folding and printing and making sure they look good and going back through and making edits that needed to be made. So I think about $2 for these. I'm thinking about doing like 2 for $3 to make it a little bit more accessible. Once again, one really cool part about the culture that I'm very into is that zine swapping. So for other artists or people who just bring in their own zines or have other ones to share, I'm going to be doing zine trading, so that'll make it accessible for people who don't have as much money. I really recognize that as someone that is not making boatloads of money in the conservation field. Money's very tight. I care more about sharing my art than making a bunch of money. Most of this I'm just trying to kind of break even and then make a little bit extra, hopefully to be able to get into new equipment and paying off having the booth and just all the materials that I bought. So that's kind of the main thing for me. Stickers are going to be about $3. Just keeping in mind, I didn't do a run of a lot of these things. If you're a artist that's trying to make a bunch of work, something to keep in mind is the more stuff that you buy from, like, that you have them make for you in terms of stuff like this or making zines, it gets cheaper the more you make. So if you do a run of like 1,000 zines, that's going to cost way less than doing a run of like 20 or 30 zines. So with these stickers, I just did 25 of each, so they're going to cost a little bit more than they would if you buy hundreds, but I don't know if I even have an audience for that, so I don't have the upfront money to invest in something that I might just have a billion stickers of after. But these are about $3 is what I'm planning on selling them for, which is pretty average to maybe a little bit on the cheaper end, honestly, compared to most conventions that I've seen. I'm trying to keep all of it as affordable as I can. I think these ones, this one and Moose Park, I'm going to do close to about $4. That's just keeping in mind that these are multiple pages and are going to require staples, or I think saddle stitching is what some people say, to hold together. I'm thinking about maybe doing some covers for them, but we'll kind of see as we get closer to the event. I still have a lot more printing to do. This one, I really care about it. I think it's really cool. I love the art for it, but it's going to be so expensive to print that I'm kind of debating bringing it or not. I really want to. I'm going to try to make it as affordable as I can. Once again, so this one's going to be like 12 half pages, and so that goes down to that'll be 2 full color sides for 6 total pages. Yeah. Going back to 70 cents per page, that's already looking at $4 or $5 to print, and once again, their paper might not be great for how the color shows up. But depending on that, it'll probably be somewhere from $8 to $10. Hopefully, not more than that. And then also I'm going to make and print a bunch of bookmarks.
Yeah, these are cool.
I was hoping to do these for free, but I didn't have enough cardstock, so I think I might just do them with purchase. We'll see what happens. I just want people to get to see my stuff.
Yeah.
But also, I don't have a lot of stuff right now. I just don't have a big printer or a team or anything. It's like I had to do all of this myself. I still have a lot more to work on. I really enjoyed doing all of this stuff. I think it was a fun challenge. At the same time, that means I didn't have inventory before starting and enrolling in the the festival. So a lot of this stuff I was making and physically encompassing while I was going. So yeah, I'll have, I think, roughly 40 bookmarks total. I really like my Black Cat one and the 12-foot Home Depot skeleton, a personal favorite. I love drawing pumpkins.
That is fire.
We have this one here that's like underground stuff. So we have like the buried undead guy. We got some eyeballs. All just fun little Halloween kind of style stuff that I'll cut out. But depending on how many of those wind up selling, the rest I'll just wind up giving away at the end is my hope.
And then going forward, looking to the future, do you have any schemes or ideas or thoughts about after this festival, if you're wanting to maybe talk to some local like comic stores about putting these in there or making them available online, or just continuing to look for further places to physically trade them?
Yeah, so I heard recently, I think it's called the Cactus Festival is another one that some zine creators went to recently, which I didn't know existed, so I'll probably look into that next year. I'm debating First Friday stuff.
Yeah.
But that's one where their website is kind of confusing, and figuring out how to get involved in it has been a little bit perplexing. So I want to learn more about that. I think that would be fun to do. I'm vaguely thinking about doing an Etsy shop as well, just to sell any ones that maybe I didn't get to during the event so that people can get them, and just charging whatever the event price was plus shipping to make sure that they can get it to them. So I'm thinking about maybe doing that. I think it would be cool eventually maybe to sell some stuff to comic stores as well. Probably something like Moose Park. This one is a little bit longer than Cavendish's 8 pages. I think this one's 12. So still not crazy long, but at least like more justifiable. I've seen ones which I thought was very cool in Seattle while I was visiting. I got these two. Shout out to both of these creators. We have Sarah Maloney, and then we have Corey Bing that made these two. We have Extinct, and then The World Ends with a Poot, which is kind of about tardigrades, which I absolutely love. They're a little bit of a niche animal. They blew up for a little bit. You might know them, those guys there. These are both really cool. These were both available at the comic store in Seattle, which I think is awesome. They're not crazy long either. I think they're both under maybe around 12 pages, definitely sub 20, I think, for both of them. But very cool stuff, and I was more than happy to support the local creators. I thought it was really cool that they had super personal, kind of smaller scale stuff like that. So I'll definitely look into it, but I'm kind of wondering if I want to develop my art and stuff more or not. We'll see what happens.
Cool. Well, I think that's all I've kind of got to talk about. It's been super fun talking about these. I'm really excited to get a few and go to the Zine Festival. Maybe I'll try to cover some of that for the channel, just so other people that aren't here can kind of see what that scene is like. Definitely just continue, hopefully, to go check out both Vermuckus and my brother Connor. He's also my twin brother, in case that's been psyching you out some. Yeah, definitely go check out all of his stuff. There'll be links below. And also just in your local communities, go see what kind of local art stuff's around. You'll meet cool people, maybe make some stuff and share some stuff. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just final shout out in general. Zines are really cool. The whole idea of these, once again, started out with accessibility. There's lots of people in the community that are super young, have no idea what they're doing just yet, that are enjoying making these. You don't have to be artistically gifted or talented to make them. A lot of people do collage stuff. You can do whatever you want. You can do sketchy kind of stuff. Go out and make zines. If you haven't made one before, try making one. These are they can be really fast to do, just doing a little 8-page thing. I've been doing some for birthday gifts for a bunch of people recently. I just think they're fun little intimate personal things that you can make for people. You can make them for yourself. A lot of people do fanzines of stuff they're enjoying. Look at your local zine festivals. Not everywhere always has one, but a lot of states do. That's a cool way to get to meet other people that are doing them, learn more, enjoy other people's art. Once again, a lot of communities are super based around trading zines as well. You can make some and trade them to people. You can buy some and trade them for other ones. It's just a really cool medium. I really like what people are doing with it. You get a lot of really unique stuff. I saw one person that made like a mini newspaper that they had wrapped up that they like gave door to door. There's all sorts of really cool things people are doing with them. Just really cool way to see super small creators that you might not see otherwise. So definitely just like get involved in the community, make a zine, go out and find zines. They're cool. It's cool stuff.
Heck yeah.
Woo!
Epic.